What up, fam? I am Dr. DeLuna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today, we're going to get nerdy. We're going to talk about my favorite lab tests and why. We're also going to talk about some tests that I'm not a big fan of and why. If you want to work with a functional medicine provider, or if you just want to take a deeper dive into your health, some of these tests can transform your well-being because they give you insight into the little nooks and crannies of your body. So if you've ever been interested in testing beyond your standard annual blood work, this is an episode that you're going to want to take notes on. All right, my friends. So many of you come to work with me and you're like, I had all my labs done. Everything's perfect. And sorry, that's honestly how I imitate almost all of you in my head, even though none of you talk like that. Unless you're from California, then you definitely do. But most of the blood work that you have done annually by your standard provider, and again, it's nothing on them. They're just screening you. They're screening you to see if there's anything really bad and dangerous that they need to take a deeper look at. So they're basically looking at your complete blood count, maybe not even with differential. It might just say CBC. Hopefully it says with differential. If not, you're getting that. You're also probably getting a comprehensive metabolic panel. So we're at 2 tests. You might, if you're lucky, get something like TSH, which is a brain hormone talking to your thyroid. It has nothing, doesn't tell me much about the output of your thyroid. A little bit, but not much. And maybe, just maybe, they'll test something like your vitamin D, maybe your blood sugar. Max, you're probably coming to me with like 5 to 6 tests. And unfortunately, you were told that this is comprehensive, that this is telling you everything that you need to know about your body. And I'm here to tell you that that is not even close to enough. So we are going to start with what I do as a comprehensive overview of someone's health the first time they're coming to see me. Some of you listening to this, if you're in the medical world, you might be like, holy shit, that's a lot, or that's not indicated, or whatever it is that your mind is going to tell you. But my argument is that I want to see what is going on in your body at that little snapshot of time, because that's what blood work is. You're taking a sample from your vein and you're looking at it. So you're seeing what everything is happening at one single moment of time. That can vary very much so from day to day, from moment to moment. So if I get your blood draw today, there's something abnormal, and then I send for a follow-up test tomorrow, it could be a very different picture. So I want to know what everything in your body is doing at once, how your organs are communicating with one another, and then some subtle things that aren't often investigated. So first thing that I look at on all of my patients is your iron. Not just your serum iron. I'm also looking at your ferritin. I'm also looking at your transferrin saturation and things like your UIBC and TIBC. Again, that is your iron, your ferritin, your transferrin saturation, UIBC, and TIBC. So I just listed 5 different values just under the subtitle of iron. The reason why I do this is because if you are menstruating, we need to make sure that you have sufficient iron in stores, but also in circulation. But also iron tells me about things like fatigue, anemia, signs of chronic infections, signs of GI bleeds. That little profile that I just told you about tells me so much. So iron needs to be included in all of those iron markers. Also, what's going on with your B vitamins, babe? Like, what's your B12 like? What's your B9 like? B12 is called methylcobalamin and B9 is called folate. Methylfolate is the active forms in your body. So I need to know what both of those are. And I would also like to know what your vitamin D is like. That is my baseline B vitamins that I run. In anyone that has any gut issues, I like to see what their vitamin B1 is like. In anyone that has headaches, I like to see what their B2 is like. In anyone that has ever been on hormonal birth control, I need to know what your vitamin B6 is like. So these are just foundational things, but I want you to know how you can expand on them. Your minerals, incredibly important to take a look at. Not only things like magnesium, and most of the time when you get minerals done, they're just run on your comprehensive metabolic panel. That's really just looking at sodium, chloride, potassium. You have so many other minerals, my babies. You have selenium, you have copper, you have zinc, you have molybdenum, you have all sorts of things that you might not even have heard these words for, and they're all doing different metabolic processes in your body. So if I'm testing you for something and see that, you know, a hormone is low, like thyroid hormone, but then if I'm not testing your minerals, your selenium, to understand if your body even has the capacity to make thyroid hormone, I'm not getting the full picture. You see what I'm saying here? You definitely 1,000,000,000% need everything that I first listed that is on your standard. So you need to know what's going on your complete blood count. You need to know what's going on differential wise, because that tells me what arm of your immune system is active. But you also need to know what's going on your comprehensive metabolic panel, which is your liver and your kidneys for the most part. Outside of that, I did mention thyroid earlier as well, and I will commend you that some of your doctors are running full thyroid panels, but I will also say that most of them are not. And I will also say that a complete thyroid panel always has antibodies, and antibodies will say anti in the beginning, anti-TPO, anti-TG. These are really important because the thyroid is a very, very, very common place of autoimmune reactions. So if you're not getting that complete picture, in my opinion, you can't rule out something like low thyroid, Hashimoto's, autoimmune thyroid, and that could be playing into almost every symptom that you're experiencing. If you're someone that's tired, has irregular periods, constipated skin, I could go on and on. After that, things that are very important for me to see on my patients are your metabolic capacity. I want to know what your fasting blood sugar is. I want to know what your fasting insulin is. I want to know what your hemoglobin A1C is. And I also want to know what your glycated serum protein is. If you're like, what is she talking about? Your fasting glucose is just what your blood sugar is when you're not eating. And this tells me a lot about your adrenal glands and also your insulin. Insulin's important for me to see because you could definitely be showing signs of early insulin resistance before it shows up on that fasting blood sugar marker. So seeing what your insulin is like when there's no food in your body, very important. Hemoglobin A1C will tell you a little bit about how high and how low your blood sugar has swung over the previous 3 months, but it's different than glycated serum protein, which is a more narrow view. And blood sugar swings, not ideal for energy, mental health, hormones, really anything that you're working on. You want stable blood sugar, so that is key. Another value that I really want to know what is like fasting is your lipids. Lipid is another word for fat. Apparently in this world, we are really, not fans of fat, but you need cholesterol. Yes, you do. Your brain needs fat. Your hormones need fat. If you don't have enough cholesterol and you're coming to me for hormone imbalances, I don't even know if you have the building block to make your hormones. Yes, see? So cholesterol, we need to know where it's at. This brings me into hormones, my bubs. Hormones, we've done a lot of work on this podcast to educate you on your hormones, when to test them and whatnot. And I hope that you've gathered that if you are working with someone that is testing your hormones and tells you that it does not matter when you test them, they are not trained to help you. I'm so sorry, but they're not. Because if you are cycling, your hormones change every day. And if you're told it doesn't matter, truly that tells me that they do not have the educational background to properly help you with your menstrual cycle concerns or your hormone imbalances, because they don't even understand that they're changing every day, okay? So I would recommend doing your hormones on day 21. Day 1 is the first day that you bleed. Day 21 is after ovulation, so you could see all of your reproductive hormones, including your cortisol, which would be an adrenal hormone, to see how all of those things are playing in. I would always recommend adding to that list of hormones, which are things that you're probably aware of, right? Estrogen, progesterone, DHT, testosterone. Make sure that there's also prolactin on there. One of my first episodes that I did with you guys was, should I be lactating? If you're not breastfeeding, you shouldn't be lactating, and you definitely need to test your prolactin, okay? So those are most of my big ones in blood work that I need to see. I'm also testing things like inflammatory markers in my patients, things like homocysteine, MPO, oxidized LDL, because they tell me what's going on in that metabolic avenue of inflammation, because inflammation makes every symptom terrible. So those are baseline blood work, what you need, baseline. I test a lot of other things outside of that. And now we're gonna go into some other tests that I use in my practice all the time that are truly revolutionizing how I practice and also really helping my patients get the shifts that they need. I think that we all know someone, or even experience, maybe you listening to this, is I've done all these tests, everything is normal. I'm even working with a functional medicine provider. All my blood work is perfect, but why don't I feel well? Why do I have brain fog? Why do I have neurological issues? Why do I feel inflamed? Why do I have joint pain? First of all, it could be autoimmune. And I forgot to say that in that blood work, I always screen for autoimmunity. I do that with something called ANA, which is anti-nuclear antibody. And I do this because I just see it all the time, honestly, especially in women. It's just very easy for your body to attack itself, probably because mentally we're attacking ourselves all the time. If you want to learn more about the autoimmune piece, listen back to my episode all about the root causes of autoimmunity. But now going forwards into what I was speaking to, all your blood work's normal. You don't have autoimmunity, or maybe you do. It's just a mystery as to why you're having these symptoms. you gotta check out toxins. You have to. I mean, those of you that have been on this journey with me, I love you. I love you so much. And you know that at some point in every episode, I talk about how poisonous this world is. So those poisons, they building up in you, okay? But the way that you approach it is typically different. For instance, that poison that you might be exposed to is mold. That poison might be a heavy metal in your water supply. It might be a pesticide that your stupid fucking landlord is spraying outside of your window because it doesn't want like a weed to grow up. Whatever it is, total toxin testing, which is a urine test, will show you what is in circulation and what is being cleared from your kidneys. Of course, some toxins are being cleared by your liver, but total toxin burden testing, I typically do that through Vibrant Wellness. Game changer to find out what the exposure is. And then of course you have to find out why, but it could be that missing link of information that will completely change your life and will help you actually feel seen and understood, because you'll have the answers as to why your symptoms have not improved and why you are told that your labs are normal, even though you really don't feel well. For me, as someone who works a lot in the environmental medicine world, I do a lot with blood work, and I'm able to see kind of the subtle signs and symptoms that someone might need to look into toxins, but it's something that you can absolutely look into on your own. Know that these functional tests, oftentimes you don't need a provider to order them for you. As far as blood work, you do, but the urine tests that I'm speaking to, the stool tests that I'm going to speak to, you can actually get these online. You can get them on my website if you want to. I'll leave a link in the bio here just so you can clickety-click-a-la on over there. So total toxin burden testing, really can't stress enough how important that is to understand your picture. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is stool testing. You know I love the gut. You know I love talking about poop. You know what I really like to do though? Is see what's in your poop. My favorite test by far is the Gut Zoomer by Vibrant Wellness. They're not paying me to be on this podcast, friends. Like, I'm just sharing with you in my practice what I see is the best, and it's kind of the best. And the reason why I think it's the best is because this test gives you such a deep window into your gut. Not only the microbiome, so all the bacteria that are growing, overgrowing, that are either too high or too low, tells you if there's any pathogens in there. So things that you don't want in there. You could have pathogenic viruses, bacteria, yeast, parasitos. You can have all sorts of things in your gut that you don't want in there. I kid you not, how many people come to me that have had lifelong gut symptoms that have gone to multiple doctors. They come to see me, then we test what's in their gut, and they might have like fucking E. coli or salmonella or giardia or entamoeba histolytica. I'm just rattling off some names to you, but I kid you not, if you have not had a solid bowel movement in years, you need to find out why, and you have to look inside your gut. So this test would show is if it is something like a microbe that's causing that, or if it's something like a food reaction, if it's leaky gut, if you have inflammatory bowel disease, if you are not making enough pancreatic enzymes, because sometimes in the gut, it's hard to really know what's going on unless you look in there. And that brings me to a test that I don't necessarily love. Babes, I don't love food allergy testing. I don't love it. If you're someone that has an anaphylactic reaction, you need to know what you're allergic to, because that's actually a dangerous situation. That's an IgE allergy test. That's actually different. That's not what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to food sensitivity allergy testing, which would typically be an IgA, an IgG, or a complement test. If you don't know what those words mean, it's fine. But things like Everlywell, and no problem with that company. There's so many companies that are testing foods that you might be reactive to, but what I find is that these tests make people scared of food. And unless you have a severe autoimmunity process going on where a food or a toxin or an infection is triggering your immune system to attack itself, I feel as if something like a food allergy test isn't necessarily indicated, because your immune system evolved with food. You should be tolerant to food. And if not, there's a lot that you can work on as far as gut health, immune tolerance, things like that. But with those tests, and I've done them before in medical school when I was fucking vegan, when my gut was a mess, I was like, oh, it can't be anything I'm doing. It must be a food allergy. I tested myself for food allergies. Let me just say that if you have more than 5 things pop up on a food allergy test, and most of them are in the red or high range, you're not allergic to those foods, you have leaky gut. I didn't know that in medical school. You know what I did then? I cut out all those foods. You know what I was eating? Nothing. You know who felt crazy? Me. You know who else feels crazy? You, because you are told that this test is going to solve your problems, and then you just eliminate all these foods, then you get scared of food, and now every time you try to go out to eat, you feel like you have to isolate yourself, and now you're in a mental health crisis. So not a big fan of that. Of course, like I said, there are times and places where it's indicated, but across the board, I would say I would almost always start with that stool test to see what's going on in the gut, because again, you will see signs of a food allergy reaction, but most of the time, people are reacting to the foods that are just terrible for you anyway. Like, do you need a test to tell you that you're lactose intolerant? Honestly, a lot of my patients do. They sit down, they tell me what they eat in a day. They tell me when they shit themselves. They tell me when they get diarrhea, and almost always it's after dairy. And I tell them, hey, honey, sounds like you're lactose intolerant. And they're like, no, I don't believe you. Test me. Those people, they might need it. But outside of that, your body's usually pretty clear with you with food, okay? So for the most part, I really do like to test your hormones in your blood just with everything else because it's a snapshot in time, like I said. However, I do really also like urinary hormone testing because it shows you a little bit more detail. It shows you the metabolites of hormones. There's pretty popular companies out there doing this, like Dutch. I love a Dutch test. Not only do I love that you can do kind of their single piece of data extraction where you pee on these little sticks and you send them in and it tells you your hormone breakdown for that day of your cycle. But you can also do things like cycle mapping so that you get an insight into your hormones throughout your menstrual cycle to get more data, more understanding as to what's going on up and down and all around. What else am I not a fan of? There are so many things that people come to me with and I'm just not a fan of. And wow, this one's actually going to be a little bit controversial, I think. I don't run genetic testing in my practice unless, you know, you are in that fertility space and you're looking for risk and whatnot. But even then, I'm still a little bit hesitant because, my friends, you are not your genes. If you've been told that you are your genes, I'm wearing jeans. You are not your genes. You are not. Your genes are bathing in a soup. The soup is telling those genes what to turn on and what to turn off. So for me, I'm a big fan of epigenetics, of creating a really happy cellular environment, rather than feeling like you are a victim to your genes, because you're not. So I don't typically run those tests. I don't necessarily get any clinical value from them. Of course, there's ways that you could do genetic testing to see what types of psychiatric medications you'll be more able to benefit from, and things to find out what type of B vitamins you need in your detox capacity and things like that, like COMT and MTHFR. I don't know. I think that that's almost similar to the food allergy test, in which it puts people in a fear response. And I like to empower my patients and help them believe that their body can heal rather than making them feel like they are a victim to something that they have no control over whatsoever. So, not a huge fan. Agree to disagree, perhaps, but I don't know. I don't know. You could try to convince me. You could definitely try. So, my sweet little babies, to recap, my favorite types of tests for you to understand what's going on in your body is comprehensive blood work, not just 5 values. And honestly, some of you come to me with like 2 and you're like, I got comprehensive blood work. You didn't. You did not. Your labs should be pages long. And also, your doctor should be describing to you what they mean. They should be describing to you what's normal, what's in range, what's out of range, and what it all means. They're supposed to be piecing it together to tell you the story. If they run a couple labs on you and if they're like, everything's normal, I don't know why you're having that. Come back in 6 months. You gotta find a new doctor. Like, you gotta. The lab should make sense. I love when I'm reviewing someone's blood work and if it tells a story, if everything's connected to one another, because if it's not, a missing part of the story. And that's when you take it further. You either order more blood work or you would then order a functional test, like the total toxic burden. Urine test is just pee-pee in a cup, see what's floating around your blood and what your immune system is reacting to. I also really love hormone testing. That could be in the urine or in the blood. And I love, love, love stool testing. Something that I didn't mention is, if it is still a mystery to you after all of those things, you gotta check out chronic infections. That is one of my favorite tests as well, because that's where a lot of mysterious symptoms, they're rooted in there. These little fucking buggies that like to live within you. So if you are looking for a doctor to test all these things with you, if you live in California, hello, nice to meet you. I would love to connect with you and look at your blood. However, you can order urine tests, stool tests online. You could get them on my website if you want to, but there's so many doctors in this country that want to help you. Truly, there's no shortage of amazing doctors. If you're like, where are they? You just have to fire yours and try to find another one, okay? I believe in you. You got this. Advocate for yourself. Ask for more tests to be run. Dig for more answers. You little dig. And please let me know if you want me to dig for you, because I love being detective. Thanks for being here. Thanks for learning. And I wish you nothing but health and happiness. Mwah.